What is the worst secondhand embarrassment you've ever felt? Someone at my college graduation ceremony yelled, "I'm queen of the world," when accepting her diploma. Not a single person laughed. Was at dinner party when my friend's mother-in-law asked another one of our friends when her baby was due. She wasn't pregnant. Anyway, my L should have simply apologized, but instead doubles down with something to the effect of, "It sure looks like you're pregnant." I was selling some kettlebells on Facebook Marketplace, and a woman, early 40s maybe, bought them. She came to pick them up, and as I handed them over to her, she obviously wasn't expecting them to be as heavy as they were, and as she suddenly strained to counter the weight, she ripped the most extreme of farts you have ever heard. It was gargantuan. I was shocked, but also proud. I'm usually pretty good at making light of any situation, but I found myself speechless for the first time in my life. If I could, I would have returned serve, but even on my best day, I don't believe I could create such a symphony. We both kind of stared into each other's eyes, and she said, "Well," and turned around and walked off. I think about her often. Had a guy walk into class in college late. It was auditorium seating, and the only open spaces were on the fourth row in the middle, about 25 rows in total and about 50 seats per row. This guy walks in and sits down, 15 minds into lecture, and opens his laptop, which as soon as the lights boot up starts blaring adult videos, and at the build-up to the big finale to boot. He couldn't log in fast enough or mute it since he wasn't logged in. So he slammed it shut, put it in his bag, and walked out with it still blaring at full volume. We heard it finally stop as he was about to leave the building, when a colleague accidentally unmuted himself in a meeting and said something snarky about someone on the call. That particular call was being recorded too. Not me directly, but I had a colleague tell me he'd been moderating a work-related town hall meeting on Teams, and the meeting was being recorded for publishing on the website. Some poor sod didn't realize his camera was on and took his laptop into the bathroom with him to continue listening while he took a dump. Since most people had their cameras off, his video popped up beside the presenters on Teams. Needless to say, the recording was quietly lost. I used to work at McDonald's. One of my coworkers was mopping the floor, and some kid's mother made a comment to her child about getting a good job so he doesn't end up mopping floors, blah, blah. So my coworker turns to her and says, "Just trying to pay for my mom's chemo." I'll never forget the look on her face. Keeping in mind that this guy's mom was not sick at all, he was taking the piss. A guy poured his heart out, confessing his admiration and respect for a male teacher and requesting him to be his personal mentor, that he would follow his teachings like a disciple, in a very long message with lots of pleading and reasoning. I know this because he accidentally used the group chat, with every single person in the Facebook group for the school on it. I still cringe 10 years later from reading it. A long time ago, I worked at an airport where we had an office with a big glass-tinted window through which we could watch the passengers and arrival hall goings-on. 3 of us were sitting at the window doing paperwork. We were all so extremely tired after a long shift when one of the guys I worked with took a glance out and spotted one of our coworkers he didn't like through the window. He proceeded to tell us the most vicious rant. "Look at that fat so-and-so, etc., etc. Looks like a warthog," just on and on with the most descriptive insults. Turns out, I guess being so tired, he had spotted her reflection in the window and she was actually standing behind us. It was just us 3 and her in the room. I beeped, reversed out of that room so quick. Follow for part 2. What is the worst secondhand embarrassment you've ever felt? Part 2, this was years ago. Met a lady, 40-ish, who had a piercing in an unusual spot, upper lip about half an inch away from the nose and more towards the cheek. It was a plain circular piercing. My friend, M20s, who knew the lady, sort of reached out to touch it, saying, "Sorry, you've got something on your face." She gently recoiled. He tried again. This was with others in the vicinity. I died a bit that day. I did this telling her she had cigarette ash on her face. It was a birthmark. A kid in my high school wore a toga to school for Toga Day, except he got the day wrong. So he just showed up, half naked, and wrapped in a sheet when no one else was dressed up. Sitting at a desk at my new job with 4 other new hires. It was like our 4th day and a new guy was there. All we heard was that his wife had been having a baby, so he started a couple days late. One guy asks him if it's a boy or girl. He says it was a boy. Asks how he's doing. The guy says actually the baby didn't make it. Got real quiet after that. The first thing that comes to mind is watching a very high white dude at a party the other night try to explain that his friend gave him a N-word pass, then continually dig himself deeper into a hole by saying weird, vaguely positive things about black people for 15 minutes straight. I was out for dinner with my family, and my brother was a wheelchair user. He would have been a teenager at the time. A drunk woman came up to us, looked at him, then turned to my mom and asked, "Is he like that famous astrologer?" She meant Stephen Hawking. I was getting ready to ship off to war, and the girl I had been dating but yet to be intimate, I was desperately in love with her, came back to my hotel room so we could change and then head to dinner. She told me she needed to change clothes and acted as she was about to undress, to which I told her, "Oh, you can change in the bathroom." It wasn't till later that I realized she was wanting to get down, and I blew it. I had first-hand and second-hand embarrassment. I was a real player, waiting for a friend after class when he asked a girl he'd been interested in for a while, but had been missing from class for a few weeks, out for a drink. She said she was flattered but just lost her boyfriend in a motorcycle accident and wasn't in a good place. He apologized and stands there stunned while she asked the professor for an extension for an assignment. Trying to be nice, she turns back and asks him how the class has been. He said, "It's been all right, but the assignments have been killing me." I, too, died inside. My friend and I were both texting someone we were upset with separately, but at the same time. She took a screenshot of their conversation to send me and sent it to them instead. A girl went up in front of hundreds of people to accept an award, but all she heard is the name Olivia, and assumed it was her, but the actual winner was also named Olivia, and when they realized they gave the award to the wrong Olivia, because the actual winner came up, she screamed and burst into tears and ran off stage. I was at a museum, and a lady next to me leaned in for a closer look at something and bonked her head straight into the glass. She thought nobody had noticed until she saw me laughing, and then she just about died. I once heard a classmate say to another student, "You can't join our group because you're brown," and the other kid replied, "I'm not trying to join your rinky-dink group and waiting in line." I signed up to play on an adult soccer team. My sister-in-law signed up too, and we were standing around, getting to know the other team members. Our team captain introduced himself and was talking to another player, and he spoke a bit differently but completely understandable, just some words were different. Then I noticed he was wearing hearing aids. Got it, no big deal. Apparently, the other player had not noticed and asked, "You, where are you from? England? That accent is wild, man." I stood there as long as I could, which was maybe 2 seconds before turning around and kicking my ball across the field to have a reason to flee. I have never run so fast or cringed so hard. I got to the ball and stopped, and my sister-in-law ran right into my back. She took off with me, and I had no idea. We just looked at each other with big eyes, silently dying, and just kicking the ball to each other. Man, I'm still cringing thinking about it.